I'm Robert Mount, born 11/1/31 in Cherry Creek, New York.
11/1 and 31.
1931.
Okay. And where are you born?
Cherry Creek, New York,
Cherry Creek, New York.
which is 50 miles south of Buffalo.
I'm from Syracuse.
Oh, okay. Well, you know Cherry Creek, Buffalo. Cherry Creek is not far from Buffalo.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
So we are from central New York.
That's right.
And so you are familiar with snow.
Oh, yes, very much.
You like snow?
No.
You don't?
No.
I like it.
That's why I live. That's why I live down here in Maryland.
So what kind of school did you go through there?
High school?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek High School?
Right.
When did you graduate that high school?
Well, making a long story short, I graduated from Pine Valley School because it merged with South Dayton and became Pine Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the class of '49, but I didn't. I quit school and went into the Army.
So when did you then went into Army? When did you go to the Army?
48, 1948,
What month?
December.
December.
So after I got through basic and went to my first
No. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
enlisted.
Why?
Good question.
Yeah.
I was fed up with school. Cherry Creek was a small town, 600 people. There was no work. The school was so small. We didn't have any guidance counselors. Nothing. Nobody talked to you about going on to college or anything. So I didn't see any future in going on to school. I quit and went into the Army. I thought there was more future being in the Army than there was any other way.
Wow.
And so I realized after I got into the Army and wanted to do some things that without a high school education you couldn't do them.
What were you thinking at the time? What did you want to become?
I wanted to go to OCS and become an officer.
Ah.
But that wouldn't happen. So I went to engineer school in Fort Belvoir.
Uh-huh.
And from there I went to Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And then the Korean War happened, and I went to Korea.
Whoa, hold on. You were assigned to Hawaii?
Right.
Wow. So what unit and what was your rank, and tell me about those.
That was the 5th Regimental Combat Team.
5th Regimental Combat. And what was your specialty?
I was in the Combat Engineers, 72nd Combat Engineer.
Mm-hmm. 77.
72nd
Second
Combat Engineer
Combat Engineer.
Company.
What combat engineers do?
Combat Engineers, they're reserves for the infantry. And they do whatever the infantry needs them to do. Search for mines, put minefields down to protect them, go on patrol to engage the enemy, to see if the enemy's around any place, search bridges, looking for mines, blow up bridges.
That's very dangerous.
All kinds of stuff, good stuff.
Good stuff. But what were you doing in Hawaii? You didn't have any war there, and there's no mines.
The 5th Regimental Combat Team was organized in Korea in 1949 and sent to Hawaii to train because the troops were pulled out of Korea. We were no longer going to defend Korea. And so they were sent to Hawaii to train. And I went through engineer school in Fort Belvoir, and so I was just one of the recruits that they sent to become part of that outfit.
Ah.
And once I got there, I had the Post Education Center send to my high school for the tests, and they sent back the seniors' exams, and I took them in Hawaii, and they sent the scores back to school, and I got my diploma from the high school as a result of taking the test. And I was actually almost on my way to Korea when I was awarded my high school diploma. My brother went up on the stage and got it for me.
So from Hawaii, did you go to Korea?
Yeah.
When was it? And when did you arrive in Korea?
July 23rd, 1950.
It was very early in the phase of the war.
That's right. By that time, the North had captured everything except that little perimeter around Pusan.
Busan.
And that's the Pusan defense perimeter. I was part of that. When we landed, we got off of the ship, and our infantry went immediately to Mason. You're familiar with Mason?
Yeah, Masan.
We went to Mason, and our infantry was put right on the line, and the 72nd Combat Engineers were reserves for them. So we were right there behind them.
So describe the typical day in Masan, the severe battle. How was it? Just give me, not many Korean War veterans today give me the detailed picture of, so that those who are listening to your interview can actually take a picture of how battle was there.
We weren't in the battle. We were behind the infantry. We were reserves.
I know. Okay.
We were waiting on the road.
Yeah.
I can give you a better picture of what the battle is like as we went north, because there came a time when we were once again, we're behind the infantry. We're their reserves.
How far is it physically?
Behind the infantry,
Yeah.
quarter of a mile. It's close.
But you never be called to the front line so that you can.
No,
No.
no. I never had to engage the enemy. Got shot at a few times because we had to go out and search for explosives on bridges and such as that. But there was one time when we were behind the infantry, waiting in the valley. The infantry was going to take a hillside. We were waiting for them to take the hillside. We were there. If they ran into any minefields, we would have to go up and disarm them, take them out. If we had to, if they got in trouble, we'd have to go up and become infantrymen for them. We were waiting there. The Air Force was dropping napalm bombs on that side hill. So we're waiting there, and we could see the enemy. You want to know how far back we were? We could see the enemy running out of their bunkers as the napalm was being dropped on them.
That's close?
That's close. That's close.
Did you see the napalm
Yeah.
exploding?
Oh, yes.
Describe it.
It's just one big explosion, and the napalm gas goes all over whoever's there and burns them to death.
And you were able to see that?
We can see it, yes. And one of my friends, he's dead now, in our own unit, 142, he was a infantry platoon leader. And he and I talked about it. He said it was like being at the movies. You're sitting there, and you're going to have to go up on that hillside, but you're sitting there waiting, and the enemy is being bombed, and you're watching them run, and just like you're sitting in a movie house watching it. It's not a good sight, but it's just as clear.
Does that bother you now? Does
No.
that appear in the dream?
No, I don't have any trouble with that. So, when from Masan, we pulled back and went over to Taegu, Taegu was the headquarters of the 8th Army. And after the Incheon invasion, everybody started north, chasing the North Koreans.
What did you do in Daegu?
Just went out on patrols.
Why? There was no enemy at the time, right? There was a
In Taegu?
Guerrilla? Yeah, in Daegu.
Well, you go out to see if there's an enemy there. You got to go out and inspect. You go out and look.
Did you find?
No,
No.
fortunately. But after the invasion at Incheon, then we started north. There's a river just north of Taegu. We came to that river, and there's I can remember it just like today. There's you come down a little hill, and then there's a flat bridge across the river there. And we were the last vehicle coming up in the advance. Our platoon leader jumped out and came back and says, "Corporal, take this detail and keep this bridge open in case we have to retreat." And he left me there with a detail, and they took off north. On the other side of the bridge, there was maybe a dozen dead North Korean scattered along the riverbank. I was only 18 years old, so I'm just a kid. And I thought, well, somebody's got to go over and see if there's any sign of life over there. So I didn't send somebody over, I went myself. Now, if I'd have been more experienced, I would have sent somebody over. But I went over myself and just examined the corpses to make sure I didn't see any sign of life. There wasn't any sign of life, and I came back and posted a guard. And after maybe a couple of hours, they came back with a truck and picked me up, and we went on north.
So where did you go from there?
We went up by Seoul and continued on north. I mean, I'm talking about now, this is September 15th.
Yeah.
We got up to as far up as the Yalu River by the end of November. But as we were going north, we didn't run into any enemy, but we had to build roads or help our own troops get to go north. We got up to the Imjin River. Here's a picture of me.
Show it to the camera, please.
This is a picture of me standing with my back to the Imjin River. We were waiting to put a bridge across.
Hold on. Let me close up. So that's the Imjin River. When was it?
This was probably early October.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds...
And we were waiting to put a bridge across the river. And when I was back in Korea on a revisit, I showed this. I was sitting around a table with a bunch of Korean War veterans, had an interpreter.
Yeah.
I showed this picture, and one of the Korean veterans that was there, he said, "I was there." And I thought it was amazing to run into somebody like that. He said he was an infantryman. They were putting his unit across the river at night in the dark to get a force on the other side so they could engage the enemy to give us cover while we put a bridge up.
From Daegu up to Seoul, what was the scene that you saw? What, everything leveled out or devastated or just left
Pretty much all leveled out. What I saw was streams of refugees coming south. Just hordes of them heading south, getting away from the North Koreans. And I saw, funny thing, I was on a Korean ship when your ship came into Baltimore Harbor a couple of years ago, and I was talking with one of the Koreans that was there, and he said, "You know, I was one of those refugees coming south." He said, "You might have seen me." I said, "Well, might have been."
Describe those scenes of the refugees from North Korea. How did they look at?
They were, everything they owned, you could tell they had with them. They had a pack, A-frames that they carried. You're familiar with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Every one of them had one of those A-frames on their back, carrying as much as they could. And that was it. And of course we couldn't talk to them. They were really disheveled looking. They were sick looking because they hadn't obviously been eating good, eating well, and everybody was afraid. They were scared. And I'll show you a picture that gives you an idea. This picture here. Now this is in North Korea. If you see that.
Did you take that picture?
I have no idea how I got these pictures.
You didn't take pictures.
I don't.
Did you have a camera at the time?
I don't know if I did or not. One day, I came home and forgot about the war, and got married and went about my life. And then one day, going through some boxes of papers and stuff, I came across all of these pictures. And
Who gave it to you?
I don't know. I don't know how I got them, but I know that I'm in them. And I know the scenes. This scene that I just showed you is in North Korea. Now this is in November. You see those civilians, you can see they're hustling to get away from something. You see over here, there's somebody up on the roof pointing. We had heard a big ruckus going on. We took a side rack off of a 2.5-ton truck and threw it up against the side of the building, climbed up on top, and went all the way over to the end of the building where we could look out and see what was going on. And you see somebody up there pointing. They're over there. That's where the enemy was. That's where all the noise
Where
was.
was that?
In North Korea.
Yeah.
But I don't know whereabouts. It was before we went up to
Yalu.
the Yalu River. So I want to say 50 miles south of there, south of the Yalu.
When did you were up to Yalu River in November, right?
Late November.
Late November. On the way to Yalu River, didn't you encounter any Chinese?
No.
No?
The Chinese weren't in there yet.
No, actually they crossed the Yalu River in the early October.
Yeah, but they were not
Identified.
identified yet. So we went north with we were assigned to a South Korean unit.
Oh, which unit?
I do not know, but they were camped on the side of the mountain where you go up and go down to the Yalu River. We stopped with them, got there at dusk. The Jeep driver for our platoon leader said they drove up to the top of the mountain and they could look down and see the bridge across the Yalu River, and with field glasses, and they could see Chinese coming across in droves. So the platoon leader, came back. We bedded down. The next morning, we heard the truck starting up. The South Korean unit was packed up and they were retreating, going south. Well, we're not done. We're not going to stay there. So we went south also. And if I'm correct, that was the day before MacArthur gave the order to retreat. MacArthur gave the order at noon. We got out of there at dawn.
That's on November.
Toward the end of November, November 26th, 7th, something like that.
Yeah.
So it was the end of November. We started retreating south. And so we had a half a day's advance start on the retreat. So we didn't have to face the enemy. So that South Korean unit getting a head start on the retreat saved us a whole lot of trouble. Now, I don't know what our orders were up there, I never heard. But the only thing I can think of was that South Korean unit was supposed to advance down to that bridge, and we were supposed to go down and blow it. But it never happened. But I can't think of any other reason to send a company of engineers up to join a South Korean infantry unit that's headed for the Yalu River. They certainly don't need our help.
So there was not actually much real battle engagement up to Yalu.
No,
No?
not on that side. No, the battle engagement was on the other side. We were on the east side, and there wasn't all that much battle there. All of the battle was over by Chosan Reservoir and over that way.
So all the way up to Yalu, and you came down to Seoul or Suwon.
We came down. We came back. Our infantry stopped at the Imjin River on the way back,
Yeah.
and our infantry held off the Chinese and North Koreans in the retreat, so that the rest of the troops could get through. But we didn't engage them at all. Not my unit. We got back to Yeongdong-po rail yard, and we were left there with a train load of explosives. Our assignment was, if the enemy comes across the 38th parallel in this retreat, you go south and blow all the rail bridges from there to Pusan.
And they did.
No, we didn't.
They came.
They came across.
You didn't.
We started to go south. We got to the first bridge, and at that point, I don't know what it was, but I thought our train was strafed, because we jumped off of it and we went down the riverbank to get away from something. And the enemy is coming, and we came back to our train to blow the bridge, and the Korean engineers that were running the train had left. So we couldn't move the train. Mm-hmm. So there we sit with a trainload of explosives, and the enemy's coming, and what are we going to do? We told the interpreters to tell the civilians that we're going to blow this train up. You all have got to get out of here. And the last thing I remember about that is going down the road back. We took our truck and started to leave, playing out the electric wire to our detonator so we could blow that train. And we blew the train, load of explosives. And that's as much as that bridge we got, but that's the only one we got.
You saw that.
That's the only one we got.
You saw that destruction scene, right?
We were far enough away. We didn't go back to look at it. We just blew it.
Okay. So when did you leave Korea?
In late August of '51.
What was your thinking when you were leaving? God damn it. Tell me.
No. I was kind of sad leaving my friends, to be honest, and going back home. I left home when I was 17. Now I've grown up. Now I've been close enough to combat, as close as I would ever want to get. So I'm a different person. What's going to happen when I get back? We didn't get mail very much. I don't have any idea what my family's doing. I have a younger brother and sister.
Didn't you write a letter back to them?
Once in a while. And I got letters from them once in a while, but mail came pretty slow. If you got a letter every couple of months, you were lucky. At least I was. So we didn't hear much.
So after you destroyed the bridge, where did you go?
We were there around that particular town, or south of it, doing the same thing that we had always done. We were going out on patrols.
What that town was?
What's
Do you
that?
remember the town name?
No.
No?
I do not know what town.
But it's obviously under the 30th parallel, right?
Oh, yeah.
Below.
Yeah, below. Because they took Seoul again, and we had to retake it.
Right.
And so all the while this is happening, wherever our infantry is, we're not far away.
Do you remember the last place that you were there before you left
No.
for state?
I do not know.
Throughout the whole service, were there any dangerous moments for you,
Uh,
really, that would have taken your life?
we were hit with mortars once, and that was early on when I was there. The first time, the first mortars that we heard coming in, I had no idea what to do, and I dove under a truck. And then I said, just as soon as I landed there, I said, oh my God, this is a bad place to be. This truck is probably a target. And I rolled out of there and into a ditch. But that was over in, that little incident was over in a couple of minutes.
How did Korean War affect you?
Well, the first thing it did made me a drunk. When I got back home, I was drinking pretty heavy, and I got married. And my wife said I would wake up at night screaming, "Kill them gooks! Kill them gooks!"
You had a PTSD then?
Some, I guess. But I was never engaged in hand-to-hand combat, so why I would have that, I don't know. Why I would have that, I just don't know. But anyway, she said that went on for a couple of years and happened.
Any other way that was affected your life?
It gave me malaria. So I had malaria when I got home. That almost killed me. Civilian doctors were treating me for having a cold and told me to go home and drink lots of fluids and rest and it'll go away. And eventually I went to Buffalo. My aunt lived in Buffalo. We were visiting my aunt, and the malaria attack, as you probably know, malaria hits you twice a day. And malaria, I was having a malaria attack, and I was heading out of town and had a head-on collision in an intersection. So the police came, and they thought I was drunk or on drugs. My wife convinced them that I wasn't, that I was really sick. They took me to the VA administration office, and I was sitting in the VA office waiting for a doctor to see me, and a nurse came out and sat down across from me. Now, my wife tells me this. I don't remember it myself. The nurse kept looking at me, and all of a sudden she got up and went back in and came out with the doctor. He took one look at me and immediately sent me over to the VA hospital, where I was for about a month getting cured. But a nice thing happened there. They gave me some counseling on going to school, the VA at the hospital. So from there I went, when we went back home to York, PA, I enrolled in York College. So getting malaria and going to the VA hospital was a good thing in a way, because it got me to go to college. I probably wouldn't have gone otherwise.
What did you study there?
Industrial engineering.
Wow. You didn't get any GI Bill?
I went on the GI Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 So then what did you do after the graduation?
I went to work in a factory manufacturing missiles in the early missile program. That was in '53. And then I went to work in the finance industry and continued on going to college at night. And I never did get my college degree, but I wound up as a vice president and senior audit manager with Bank of America.
Something good came out of it.
That's right.
Huh?
That's right. Absolutely.
You told me that you've been back to Korea, right?
Yeah. Yes.
When was it? And tell me about it.
This was 5 years ago, I believe. I went with the church group, Korean church, and It was such an impressive thing. And I'm so proud of what the Korean people there have done with that country. Because when I left it, it was nothing, there was nothing there. I mean, they were down to absolutely nothing. Everything was bombed out. There was no infrastructure at all. And now it's a modern country. It's as modern as we are, United States. Maybe more so in some cases. But I was so impressed with the people. When they took us to church, all the little kids were outside of the church lining the walkway, and they were reaching out to touch a veteran. And when we went into the church, all of the congregation was standing up applauding, and all of the bands were playing, and the chorus, the singing that was going on, all for us. I mean, it was just so impressive. It was hard to keep from crying. And they spoke for a couple of hours, telling us, thank you, we can never forget you home. It was just marvelous. And I was impressed that we went up in the Seoul Tower, and there,
Namsan Tower.
And there were some school kids, and as soon as they saw veterans, they ran over, wanted to take a picture with us. I went to the museum, and I was most impressed with one. I got away from the group and went to the second floor or third floor, where there is an exhibit about the Korean War, several exhibits about the Korean War, and they have cutaways of buildings. One of those that impressed me was they had a cutaway of a house with a hole in the ground underneath it. And the story is that when the enemy came near, those people that could be of value to the enemy went out and hid underneath the house in that hole. Another exhibit there has the house, out back of the house there's a tree, and underneath the tree there are maybe a dozen kids with their teacher teaching them. And I speak in schools here in the U.S., and I tell them about that exhibit. And I say that's one of the reasons the Korean people have done such a marvelous job rebuilding their country and becoming what a great country they are, is because of the dedication of the students to wanting to learn, but the teachers' willingness to go out to teach them. Even under these circumstances where there's fighting going on 2 miles away, the teacher still got the students out there teaching them. And we were so impressed. I was so impressed with that.
Why do you think even such beautiful thing came out of Korean War, but in America it's been forgotten? Why was that case?
Why do we forget? Our people?
Why people say that the Korean War was a forgotten war?
It's hard to say why, but there wasn't much of any concern about it. I don't think that the main populace even realized that we were in a war. When we came back home, the veterans, they didn't know that we had been gone. You'd see somebody on the street that you knew, and they'd say, oh, I haven't seen you in a couple of years, where you been? They didn't know you were in Korea fighting a war. So it was just one of those things. It happened, and I guess the politicians were concerned about it, but it didn't affect the general populace much. We just went through World War II with rationing and all of that stuff that the people knew about. With Korea, there wasn't any rationing, there wasn't any harm, there wasn't any hardship to the people. It was only for those who got killed, their families, but other than that, there wasn't any effect on the people.
Any other important points that you want to add that I didn't ask you about?
I don't think so.
Thank you very much again for your wonderful interview, and I want to thank you on behalf of Korean Nation for your fight and sacrifice. Thank you very much again.